Pale View of Hills is Kazuo Ishiguro's debut novel, published in 1982. Ishiguro is a British writer. He was born in Nagasaki in 1954 and then moved to England in 1960 when he was 5. He's most well known for his novels The Remains of the Day, which won the Man Booker Prize, and Never Let Me Go. And he also won the Nobel Prize for Literature in 2017. So you know he's good because they don't give prizes to people who aren't. This is the first Ishiguro novel that I've read. And in case it wasn't obvious from the title, I thought it was really remarkably good. I'm not going to go into any plot spoilers, whatever that means, in this video, but I am going to be talking a little bit about what I think the book's about and some of its themes and stuff, which, to be honest, with this book is potentially more of a spoiler than any kind of plot details would be. So I'd recommend that if you have any interest in it, like, the point of this video is to tell you to go and read it. It's absolutely worth your time. So that's kind of like the long and short of it. So if you have any interest, I'd just go ahead and read it. But if you want to stick around, or if you have read it and you want to know my thoughts on it, then that's what the rest of the video will be. So the novel is told from the first person, from the perspective of Etsuko, who is a Japanese woman living alone in England, who has recently suffered loss in the form of her first daughter committing suicide. She has 2 daughters. Her first daughter, who is Japanese, with her first husband, called Kiko, has killed herself. Her second daughter, who she had with her second husband, who is English, Nikki, is visiting her for 5 days. And the novel takes place over a dual timeline. So we get the present day of Nikki and Etsuko in England. And then we're also told of Etsuko's memories of the time that she was pregnant with Kiko, living in Nagasaki in the years following the atomic bomb. But really, the plot isn't the focus here. I suppose first and foremost, this is a psychological novel. In being privy to Etsuko's memories, we start to get an idea of who she is and the kind of things that are on her mind. And obviously she's dealing in the present, and everything in the past is told as though it is flashback as well. So it's made very clear that what we're dealing with is memory rather than strictly accurate storytelling. And we start to see parallels between things that happened in the past, in Etsuko's memories, and where things have gone. And I think my thoughts on what this book are about are still a bit scattered, to be honest. And part of me kind of wants to have more of a chance to like really gather my thoughts and articulate something more clearly. But actually, I think probably the kind of more scattered state of flux that I'm in is maybe a more honest reflection of what the experience is like reading this book, at least for the first time. And I'm sure on rereads, new things will make themselves clear, or potentially you could firm up current sort of theories. But the whole atmosphere of this book is one that is very mysterious, and there's something hazy about it. It all being told through memories means that you're kind of constantly questioning the veracity of some of these memories and whether things really happened the way Etsuko is remembering them. I think if I was to highlight a couple of things that I primarily think the book is about, I'd say it is about grief, and it's about how we cannot escape the past. Ishiguro chooses to set the novel in Nagasaki, and there's a lot of references throughout the book of the disaster with the atomic bomb and the situation that the place is in following that. And it seems a fitting setting because Nagasaki still kind of stands as a reminder of humans' capacity to destroy each other. And it stands to remind us, as it's almost a kind of a memento mori, if you like, of one of history's darkest moments. And it's a moment that our species can never really escape. That is always a part of our past. It's a fitting location because in this novel, Ishiguro is concerned with this idea of not being able to escape our past, with how the events of our past act as a kind of echo that reverberate into our present. And we see the same thing reflected in Etsuko. She can't escape her past, even fleeing the country, moving away. She's remarried, she's had another child, but she's still incapable of escaping the person that she was and things that have happened in her past. And so much of that becomes embroiled in the kind of guilt and remorse, some of which is probably unwarranted and some may be warranted, that is left in the wake of a person's suicide. But the way Ishiguro chooses to explore all of this feels so intensely human. He seems to be such a natural observer of human behavior. And Etsuko, and by extension Ishiguro, approaches everything indirectly. Nothing that is being said is what is meant, and nothing that is meant is said. So often it feels like Etsuko is trying to get at something by talking about something else. And Ishiguro is able to capture so perfectly how people talk to each other, and more importantly, how people talk about themselves. I had planned to sort of share some quotes from the book to give an idea of Ishiguro's writing style, but to be honest, quotes don't really do the book justice. If you were to take almost any section of this book out of context, it would come across kind of dry and boring, to be honest. Which sounds like a criticism, but actually, if anything, it's a compliment, because in context, almost every line is so layered with possible interpretation and implication. Ishiguro has this kind of elliptical style. He's not trying to kind of dazzle you with any showy writing or superfluous faux profundity. He is every sentence and every line of dialogue is entirely in service to the story and the characters. He writes with this kind of uninflected style that places the work at its center. And though out of context it may seem dry and boring, in context it's so rich and imbued with melancholy and regret and ambiguity that's just so rich with implication that there's so much work to do for the reader. He doesn't spoon feed you any answers. He allows the reader to be kind of actually a part of the text, kind of get involved with the book and actually bring your own ideas to it. Two people could read this same novel, I think, and draw entirely different interpretations out of it. To be able to achieve this kind of mature, tightly controlled, precise prose in a debut novel is really remarkable. And it means I am really excited to read Ishiguro's other works. And if they are anywhere near as accomplished as this one, which I'm led to believe they are, I can easily see Ishiguro joining my personal pantheon of favorite writers. And while this is ultimately, I suppose, a psychological novel, there are elements of kind of socio-political commentary in there as well. I mean, the setting of Nagasaki following the bomb is also, gives us a glimpse into a culture that's still rebuilding itself. It's a place that is kind of in transition, where you have people who want to cling to the past coexisting with people who are embracing a new direction. We have this character in the novel of Etsuko's father-in-law who kind of comes to represent a lot of this stuff. He's a man in his retirement who is struggling to come to terms with Japan's failure in the war, and he feels as though the country is losing its identity. And this is at the same time as he's going through a process of struggling with his own kind of mortality, recognizing that he isn't the sort of powerful authority figure that perhaps he once was in his youth. This really feels like a novel about people who feel out of place, who either yearn to go back to a time when they felt more certain, or perhaps are looking forward and hoping for a future in which they will. They kind of always feel on this transition between past and future, and the present is never quite where they want to be. We're reminded by Etsuko, who moves away, and yet her thoughts still dwell so heavily in the past that you can change your environment and you can move away, but you can't ever really escape yourself. And in the same sense of this idea of between having like the past and the future, and the structure of the novel kind of reflects this, because we have the Nagasaki section in the past and what is the present. But really, the part of Etsuko's life that this book is about is the bit that we don't see. A huge part of the novel is made up of dialogue. It's like maybe like 70% of the novel or something is just dialogue between characters. And yet almost everything that these people say, they're only saying so that they can not say something else. I think that the structure of the novel is doing the same thing. The part of the novel that's important and the bit that lasts with Etsuko, the thing that is driving the memories that she's having, the feelings of guilt, the feelings of grief that she's dealing with, and that really form the underlying themes of the novel, all happen in the space that we don't see. And we come to see that the events of that period that we kind of miss out on inform Etsuko's understanding of the past as much as they do of her present. And so Etsuko is an unreliable narrator, But I think to label her as such is kind of to implicitly acknowledge that we're all our own unreliable narrators. The only understanding that we have of our lives and where we've been is through the lens of memory, which is fallible. And the past sections of this book, when we see Atsuko's memories, the atmosphere of them kind of exists somewhere between memory and a dream. We see these motifs kind of layered in and coming back up again. And there's just always something hazy about the way she's remembering things. Okay, so I didn't realize that it stopped recording. And because I'm a doofus, I moved everything around. So if everything looks different now, that's why. I just went to try to edit this and realized at the end hadn't recorded. Anyway, it's probably for the best because I would have just probably been rambling on incessantly. Anyway, so the truth is I don't have too many clear thoughts about this book because this isn't a clear and obvious book with like a stark message. Ishiguro is not going to spoon feed you anything. It's ambiguous. It's mysterious. It does have this kind of memory, dreamy, hazy atmosphere. And that's a lot of what makes it so good, to be honest. The reading the last page of this book left me winded in a way that I haven't experienced from a novel in a really long time. It was like a real gut punch. And so much of the power and the strength of this book comes from Ishiguro's just impeccable writing. He creates humans who feel real. He understands. He sees the world in such an interesting way. And for me, this book and Ishiguro as a writer has just been a really wonderful discovery. And yeah, the book is A Pale View of Hills, and I can't recommend it enough. You've got to read it.